and welcome back to Retro Wrestling Games Presents. This episode will feature Tecmo World Wrestling, released April of 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. With me, as always, is my good friend Matt Riley. How you doing tonight, Matt?
Always.
Indeed.
I'm fine.
Awesome. Welcome back. So, Tecmo World Wrestling is an interesting wrestling game. It has a couple of notable firsts. I think the big one is the cutscenes towards the end of the matches when a big move is being performed. So that's a really interesting feature. It's kind of an action replay type deal, and it kind of gives a lot of dramatic tension to long matches and, championship type matches. Some of the notable wrestlers in this game, you have Akira Dragon, which is your Antonio Inoki ripoff. You have El Tigre, which is a wrestler based on Tiger Mask.
Yeah.
Pat Gordon, who is based on Luthez. Rex Beat, which is a Clear Road Warrior ripoff. Jackie Lee, which is basically Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee mixed together. Boris Chekhov, which is a ripoff of Stan Hansen. Mark Rose, who resembles a Ric Flair during the 80s. Julio Falcon, which is a ripoff of Hulk Hogan. Randy Gomez, who is a ripoff of Harley Race. Dr. Gildo, pretty sure that's how you say it. He looks like Big Van Vader. And you have the Blue King, which is, I guess, an original character. Some people said it reminds them of the Super Strong Machine, which is the basis for the Machines in WWF. This Machines was a Japan gimmick from back in the day. Another notable thing about this game is that you can train in between matches, and it will level up your character. For example, you can do squats, you can do inverted sit-ups, and you can do push-ups with a sumo wrestler on your back. So, Matt, when you were training to become a professional wrestler, did you ever do push-ups with a sumo wrestler on your back?
Oh, who didn't? I mean, really, come on, that's one of the staples. And just remember that women weaken legs, sumo wrestlers strengthen them.
You damn Skippy. So I did have a lot of fun playing this game. I didn't get too far into it. It is notably difficult, but not in a bad way. It's a hard game because the game is hard. It's not because of the gameplay mechanics. It's not because of the controls. It seems like the computer, the AI, gets really angry when you're about to beat it and kind of makes that big comeback and beats the shit out of you until the end. So the matches are very, very competitive. It usually gets down to one or two moves right at the end to make sure you get your win. I did get my ass handed to me in this game quite a bit, but it seems like if you play long enough and you do a lot of those training mini games, that you will power up your wrestler enough where you can pretty much breeze through the game if you want to spend the time doing it. Again, this game came out in April 1990. There were other wrestling games out, around the same time, whether it be WWF WrestleMania or WrestleMania Challenge. They don't hold a candle to this game. Those games are both pretty shitty, and I'm wondering, if the WWF had this license with the great cutscenes, with the finisher holds, there's a great cutscene of the, Insiguri, or when you do the giant swing and you can literally throw the guy across the ring. Those are, really fantastic cutscenes, and I wonder, would the game be successful if they had something similar where like Hogan dropping the leg or Savage coming off the top rope with an elbow. And then it had the announcer on the bottom whose name was Tom Talker. So if you ever want to become a announcer, I'm sure there's some indie announcer, someone that's named Tom Talker. But what if you would have replaced that commentator with a Vince McMahon or a Jesse Ventura or a Gorilla Monsoon? Probably not Jesse, because he wanted those royalty rights and they probably didn't put him in the game. So I think this game is based on a Japanese. Well, it's a port. Let's be honest. It's a port of a Japanese video game, which I can't pronounce, but it's Gigato Pro Wrestling Tokan Densu. There it is. Again, this is not officially licensed. It's not one of those games that they had All Japan or New Japan license on it. So I kind of wish that this was the WWF game, because it does have guys that resemble wrestlers of the day.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I'm watching a clip of this, and they no sell the shit. Like, dude gets giant swung over the top rope to the floor, gets up, gets back in the ring.
Yeah.
Now, as a former wrestler, I would have like hardweighted him. But then I'm thinking, it doesn't matter if you're hardweighting because El Tigre here ain't selling shit. And the best, I just watched him pile drive the guy, kicks out. Okay. The guy gets up, pile drives him. It's a classic, you gotta sell for me if I'm gonna sell for you thing.
Hey, listen, looks like a Ring of Honor show. Ooh.
Oh. Do they have a wrestling game yet?
No, but they just got action figures. So they got the action figures, they got the ring, which is notable because Kevin Owens is part of their action figure line. So
Really?
I don't think the WWF is too happy about that.
Oh. Is it Kevin Steen?
It is Kevin Steen, yes.
Okay, well, there you go.
So, he was a big star for them for quite a while. So
Sure.
So this seems to be Tecmo's, I guess, only attempt at a wrestling game for the NES. And looks like it was a flash in the pan or a one-hit wonder. And moving on to our next topics, and we're talking about flash in the pans, we have to talk about the new cover wrestler of WWE 2K17, Bill Goldberg.
Oh.
Matt is not a fan of Bill Goldberg.
No.
It's interesting to note that he's on the cover of the game, and not that they, in the past they've put guys like Austin on, was last year's game. They put Sting on the cover of the game. Actually, I don't think he was on the cover. I think Cena was on 15. He might have been on 14. No, because Daniel Bryan and The Rock, he had the flip over covers for that one.
Oh, jeez.
With promotional materials for the recent WWE 2K games, but having Goldberg on the game, I mean, now there's a lot of people wondering if he's going to come back. They're doing the draft soon. Those are going to bring in some new talent. Goldberg is noticeably smaller than he was in the past, but he's getting older. So,
well, yeah, he's a lot older, and plus, when's the last time he wrestled?
He wrestled. No, he wrestled recently. He wrestled on
really?
a couple. Yeah, he wrestled on 2 indie shows in 2015. So, maybe he's making a comeback or what have you, or maybe his WCW money is running out. So
I was gonna say more likely it's like those. Whenever you see like Samuel L. Jackson in a terrible movie, I just think it should be called Samuel L. Jackson Needs Money. So this should be called Bill Goldberg Needs Money.
Yeah.
I personally never liked him as a performer. I found him very limited. I found him not very believable. I never liked his promos. I think he was a wannabe Ultimate Warrior without the charisma.
Again, with a guy like Goldberg, I do agree with that statement. Wasn't a big fan at the time. Again, I was more of a Steve Austin guy than a Goldberg guy, which is weird because I was more of a WCW guy than a WWF guy. But, even the streak at 173-0 was, everyone knows that was a little inflated. But he did lose a match. I mean, it was a dark match against Chad Fortune on Saturday night. So, and I'm pretty sure he lost a count out to Steve McMichael at a pay-per-view. But I don't have any of the any proof of that. So
I will say that I think, in my opinion, the streak was probably the only bright part of his thing because it became a phenomenon.
Right.
I think I said in one of our previous shows that I always felt the Honky Tonk Man's Intercontinental title streak was worth going after, and you don't even have to have somebody break it per se. But if you had The Miz or Dolph Ziggler make a serious run at it, my theory for the would have been streak type thing would have been to have someone like Santino Marella, who starts off as a comedy character and then evolves over the time of the streak. So by the time he gets close, people are rooting for him. But I think with Goldberg, the streak was one of those things. Yeah, you had these house show question marks, and again, it's not quite as social media'd out now as it is then, or vice versa. I feel that the streak now, you could do a lot with it.
yeah,
We saw what they did with Rusev, but that was kind of he beat Heath Slater again, So
Goldberg was getting big wins. He got wins over Raven for the U.S. belt. He beat Scott Hall, the Giant, and he was impressive. He got the Giant up for that jackhammer, and that was an impressive feat of strength.
I did like the jackhammer. He did that well.
And he probably, to this day, has the best spear. I think it's better than Edge's. It's better than Roman Reigns.
Right. I mean, I think his football experience really, because he really gave he's killing this guy.
He did kill guys.
I think his worst move was the big boot to the head. That did not go well.
Yeah, it gave Bret Hart a stroke.
Yeah, pretty much. Dude, come on. It's just one of those things. He was sloppy, and I always felt like he was like, the Nasty Boys had a reputation as being very sloppy in the ring with their opponents.
A little unsafe.
Yeah, so I wasn't a fan of his. I also thought they screwed him with the streak. The way they ended it was like, really? You could have had almost a repeat thing where somebody came out of nowhere and beat him, and like, oh my god, this guy is also gonna be the next big guy. But whatever.
Now, there's a lot of reasons. You go around the internet, and there's like a lot of reasons of why they ended the streak. But the one thing they don't talk about, he was set to do a movie. He was about to be in Universal Soldier 2 with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So I'm wondering, because no one ever talks about that. Everyone says, oh, he got hurt or got injured. Like, no, they took him off of TV. He got like beat up by the Steiners. He got taken off TV. And he went to go do that movie. And I think doing that movie at that time kind of took a lot of the heat off of him. Like, a lot of the momentum they had with him was gone. By the time he came back, it was like, man, just another wrestler. So I don't know. No one ever talks about, hey, they ended the streak because he was about to be out for like fucking 6 months to do a movie,
right,
or what have you. But I think that's probably the legitimate reason for why they ended the streak. Though kind of maybe not the way they did, but the fact that they did it at all. Kevin Nash was over at the time. There's some people saying that he wasn't over at the time, but he was in terms of the babyface with the Wolf Pack, the red and black. He was, in terms of on the card, moving up in the card. And he was over for a period of time, especially in '98. So the thing I would have done with Goldberg was really simple. You have him go through the streak, he wins the title, and then as you get progressively more into his title run, have him start almost losing matches. So like you have like a Bret Hart who almost beats him, or you have a Chris Benoit that almost beats him, and then he starts getting a little paranoid. You know what I mean? And then you work that up until, okay, now he's getting more aggressive in the ring. Now he starts to take shortcuts because now he's paranoid. All he wants to do is hold on to the streak, hold on to the belt, and it's kind of making him into a heel. And then pretty much halfway through that run, I would have made him a heel. A guy that's willing to do anything to protect his title run, anything to protect the streak. What it means, if he has to bash a guy with a chair or knock out a referee or take someone out. I think that's what they should have done. That's the direction they should have done with Goldberg, instead of, what they were planning to do was have Nash beat him, give the belt back to Hogan, and then have Goldberg go through everyone again. So they're basically just repeating it, the cycle. Instead of doing something interesting like turning him heel through his title run, they gave him fresh opponents. So now you can start taking some of the babyface guys on. Right. I think, it's something that doesn't be done in wrestling was the title. We mentioned this before, was the champion turning heel in the middle of his run. I think that would have been a lot better. I don't know if he could have carried it, being a heel at that time. He might have been too green or what have you, but I think he put enough guys around him. He could have his own entourage of guys, and he gets a big head. He's doing Hollywood now, and that would really turn him on the fans.
Yeah. I think what happens a lot too is the way the characters are written out and the storylines go. They almost think like a title change has to happen. Like you have to have a full functional change before they can actually have them grow or disperse. And that's why I always felt like it's better to have things where they see the person evolving. You don't see it really anymore. Like for example, the other night you heard the announcers, if you watched Raw, well, the final chapter in the Dolph Ziggler Baron Corbin feud is
that's still going on. Holy shit!
Yeah, they put it down Monday night because they said like 3 times during the match, "I hope this is the end of it," or whatever it was, or they meant like in passing about the match from the Sunday night. And it was good that like they kind of moved on from it. Because give Dolph Ziggler something to do besides job to a guy who's not ready to be in the pros. WWE, it's just like, terrible.
Now, are you of the belief, because I am, there's certain guys who come into the industry and they're main event or bust. So you got a guy like The Big Show who won the WCW Heavyweight Championship in his first match, because what else are you going to do with the guy? There's other really big jacked up guys too. They got like a Mason Ryan, Nathan Jones. You look at these guys like, we can't put this guy in the mid card. Like it's either main event or he's out of the business because there's nothing really else to do with him. I think Goldberg may have fell into that category. Yeah,
I can see that. I mean, certain wrestlers, I think. I mean, to a degree, like Alberto Del Rio kind of strikes me as that. Like, when you have him fighting for the U.S. belt and he's jobbing at guys at Kalisto, you're like, all right. I mean, you think of what he did in Mexico. It's like, it's Dos Caras. Come on, man. Like, give him something good to do. And then. When you have these matches where these feuds of this ridiculous things, like I think that Foreign Legion group could have been good, but they blew it.
They weren't menacing enough, which is if they were more menacing, than anything else, and they really played up the anti-American sentiment, which they didn't do at all, then it would have worked. But it was basically, they had the legs chopped out from underneath them, and it wasn't it was just a bunch of guys to fill some time.
Right. And it was funny. I listened to a podcast the other day, David Shoemaker, and he brought up a good point. Like, remember the NXT guys?
Yeah.
When they broke in and they like took out like John Cena in the ring and the announcer and like just demolished the place. It was one of those examples where the writers had a really good idea and no one thought beyond 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it really showed after that, because then they suspended Daniel Bryan for choking Cena, and it was like, what?
It was actually Justin Roberts who was choking out with his tie.
Right, that's what it was, yeah. And it was just like, but yeah, these guys, you can't have these wild, reckless outlaws and then be like, well, you can only be so outlandish. Right. It's like right now with the gun reform. Somebody put a bill out the other day, and it was like, well, they can have a background check, but only for 72 hours. They only have 72 hours. Like, either do or don't. Like, don't give me this bullshit. Like, if they're going to be a heel bad guy, have them destroy someone.
Right.
Remember back, I always go back to the Attitude Era, but like, there was a reason. It was over the top, but like, it sold the scene. You knew, like, when Big Vader came out, Big Van Vader came out, he was going to kill somebody. That's how it is with Brock Lesnar. Like, when he comes out, you're like, oh man, when he was fighting Dean Ambrose, you knew he was going to beat the hell out of him. So I just feel like, when it comes to like Bill Goldberg, he was one of those guys that was like a all or nothing. Yeah. But I don't think you have to do that. I think you can have them grow and progress. Because it almost makes a thing. If you have like 3 guys who are all kind of moving up the ladder at the same time, like, remember when Sting and Luger were both popular and both going, it was like, who's going to be bigger,
Yeah.
And there was a legitimate argument, back then you're like, oh, either one could have gone. The old Ultimate Warrior or Sting, who would you have taken in 1989,
Yeah, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels,
right.
Triple H, The Rock.
And I think that actually breeds a rivalry, and the fans can go, well, I'm a so-and-so guy, I'm a so-and-so guy. I mean, in a way you kind of have it with the Shield, except they dropped the ball with Reigns and now the whole suspension thing.
Yeah.
Ambrose is growing on me, but I was always a Rollins fan.
I think Ambrose is a modern day version, and I might get some heat from this, of Terry Funk.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of look at the way he punches, the kind of way he works, the kind of off the wall goofy attitude. I think a lot of that is a Terry Funk influence, and a lot of the old school workers really like him because he says that he's a throwback to the 70s.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. Like, I actually think it's good to have a mix of styles. Like, I was reading a tweet from Rip Rogers, who, if you don't follow Rip Rogers on Twitter, you really should.
Agreed.
Especially when he goes on a rant at like 3 a.m. and goes for like 2 hours just talking about, like, guys who blow spots in matches or tips for rookies. He's excellent. He was talking about, if you do a brand split, you should have some rule changes. So it's almost like AL versus NL in baseball. Where you have 2 different types of things. Maybe one title can only be won a certain way or something like that. So you build some real concrete differences. Maybe they keep all the light heavyweights on one card, or just make it mixed up,
Remember when they had the WCW TV title and they had the stipulation that you had 10 minutes to beat the guy for the belt?
Oh, yeah.
That's something they should bring back, like SmackDown.
Yeah.
Or if you want to take it so far, make throwing a guy over the top rope a disqualification. Like the old NWA rules.
Yeah, there's ways to go about it. Because what also happens when you do that, like if you go to Wikipedia and read the Ring of Honor page, and you can go also other pages too, but that's one I liked. It talked about the formation and how it was all built around honor and shaking hands, and it made the early villainy so stand out because no one was, he's cheating, it's honor, and that worked really well. I think with the brand split, they could really do a lot with it, and I hope they do. I hope they're just sitting there going, "Oh, we're just going to divide them up and have at it, folks."
I just wanted them to do like a blue. It's Blue Raw. I'm like, no,
right.
I don't want to see that.
Right. I mean, I want to see some differences, and I think it'll really help. It'll help sell different shows, and I think you could do a thing where maybe all the tag teams are on SmackDown. Or just I'm just throwing shit out there, but like really make some significant differences. Because like one thing that Rip Rogers pointed out exactly is if there's no differences, there's nothing. The name's changing.
Yeah.
So make some differences. I always like the old 24/7 rule.
Did you see that video of Cole Cabana beating Scott Hall for that like Iron Man championship they had?
I didn't see the clip. What was that about?
So basically, I guess they had this belt that can be defended 24/7. And called the Iron Man Championship. So Scott Hall had somehow won it. So he's in the back. Kevin Nash is on the phone. He's talking to Kevin, and then Cole Cabana comes over with a piece of paper and he asks Hall, "Can you read this?" So Hall reads it out loud, like, I give up. The referee's there. He takes the belt, hands it to Cabana, and they move on. So I thought that was awesome.
So I will say, using some IWA Imaginary Wrestling Association here, way back when there was an angle we had where Johnny Revolution was trying to force Frank Snow to beat Adam Cash for the title, and instead of basically selling out, he just turned to the reference with, I submit. Just to give the FU to the promoter, But that was I think people don't use enough, like just the verbal, there's so many, maybe one of the titles is submission only.
That'd be good.
You can only win the belt by submission. You can only win the belt by pinfall. So, like, if you have someone who's the submission master, they're got an edge over someone who's not. There's so many ways you can go with it, and I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I mean, WWF has not been known for their gimmick championships. Like, maybe a 6-man championship. Maybe, like they had the Pure Wrestling Championship in the Ring of Honor, where you only had 3 rope breaks, and if you're out of rope breaks, then the guy can do a submission in the ropes. Like, you couldn't throw a punch. It had to be all open hand. It couldn't be closed fist. So that's disqualification. That kind of stuff. So it'd be interesting to see that. It looks like they're bringing back some veterans, and Goldberg might be on the list. Also on that list, it seems like there's some interest with Kurt Angle. Be interesting to see him back. If Kurt Angle does come back, I prefer him to see him more of a part-time wrestler, kind of what they do with Lesnar, like have him come in every couple of months or what have you. At his age and his physical condition, and he's still having great matches, but I'm just afraid that he's going to get hurt like permanently.
Right.
I would try to keep his appearances to a minimum, but you might see a Brian Kendrick come back. You might see a Shelton Benjamin come back, Paul London, Stevie Richards. There's interest there to bring him back. Kind of fill out the mid card so they're not cannibalizing their NXT.
I would also hope, and I know this sounds probably against type, but if you're going to do 2 different programs, have 2 different writing teams. Really break it up. Like, have 2 teams that don't associate. So you establish different storylines, different whatever. Maybe the only thing you do is you kind of correlate, okay, because like I mentioned Rick Rogers, he talked about how, on a show, we're doing a promo, like let's say a house show, right? You know what everyone else is doing for finishes, so you don't have the same finish over and over. How many times have we seen a Raw where they have the same finish like 3 nights in a row, where someone hit the same exact kind of DQ or whatever? It's like, what?
I wouldn't even have Raw and SmackDown promote each other. I wouldn't even have them talk about each other at all. Like, don't recap what happened on SmackDown on Raw and vice versa. Have it be 2 completely separate entities.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're going to split the fan base. They didn't split it before, because most people, if you're a diehard wrestling fan, you're going to watch both shows anyway, because you probably watch both shows now. But you never know. Someone will be flipping the channel and be like, oh, I like this SmackDown. It has a bunch of different guys on it, and might increase that audience, because what they're trying to do, because SmackDown in the ratings hasn't been the greatest for them. It's been a B show for the longest time. It's not any different than a main event or superstars.
I would say that's why you're probably going to see like AJ Styles, Cena, the Club on SmackDown, because you've got Monday Night already set up as a household name, if you will.
Yeah.
Give SmackDown some more star power. Maybe you have New Day and Bray Wyatt and those guys on Monday. And that draft's up until like July. I thought it was coming up like right away. But in a way, if it takes time to really think up some ideas for what you can do with this, then do it.
Agreed. I'd like to see some fresh faces, maybe some old faces. I want to see a completely different show. We may or may not see Bill Goldberg. Who knows? I don't know if they're going to do what they're going to do with GMs. You don't know if Stephanie's going to be on one. You don't know if Shane's going to be another one.
Oh, they made a little mistake with that the other night.
Really?
Well, they brought back Johnny. What's his face?
Johnny Ace?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he came out and he was doing a little promo, and then Shane came out, and Shane basically blurted out that he was going to be the GM in charge of SmackDown.
Okay.
And all the fans went nuts. And then later on, he was doing Chris Jericho, you're in my office routine. Yeah. And Jericho was like, well, maybe I'll go to SmackDown. He's like, well, I'll be over there being the GM. He's like, oh, maybe I'll stay here. And he was like, well, I'll be over here too. It's like,
confused.
And I would love to see them take that Jack Tunney role and either have very minimal involvement, because I still hate the generic wow, you guys yelling at each other? I'll show you. You're all in the main event. Book the shows and promote the main. Tonight's main event, or next Monday, you're going to see Roman Reigns versus Dean Ambrose in a blah 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 match and build it up, as opposed to whoever you open the show with. It's four guys. Oh, you guys are on a tag match now.
I agree. I mean, the fact that it's all very predictable. Like, I would even throw in, like, we run out of time on Raw. We'll see the clips on it next week, kind of, just to make it seem like it's, that anything can happen. And you gotta throw those things in there every once in a while. You don't have to do them all the time, but every once in a while, if you don't have a conclusion to a main event and then they come back, or like, hey, listen, we ran out of time, but if go on the network and finish watching this match. It's a good little gimmick to get people to watching the network, or if you don't have the network, you may want to subscribe at this point because you want to see the finish of that particular match. So, again, it's just different things to look for in terms of the brand split. We'll see if our good friend Bill Goldberg will be making an appearance. I'm assuming he's going to be doing some promotional work with the WWF at this point. Hopefully, this run will be better than his last run, although he won 2 heavyweight championships. He did beat The Rock, so they actually pushed him. People say they buried him in WWF. I don't think that was the case. I think they did what they could with him. Eventually, they get beat by Triple H with the help of a sledgehammer. So, it wasn't a shovel, folks. It was a sledgehammer. But he did have a good, year and a half run in the WWE while he was there, and he was one of the top guys and was pretty over. So, we'll see. Has he progressed as a wrestler? I don't know. Maybe not. He was one of those guys who started using like MMA type moves pretty early on, although they weren't as slick as say like a Ken Shamrock or whatever. But he was kind of a innovator in that respect, and you can't deny the guy was wildly popular and he was over, and they promoted him pretty well. I know there was some videos of like the baseball record in '98 with the McGuire and Sosa race with it. And McGuire was rubbing his his bat on his arms to make sure he got some extra good luck or what have you. So he was out there, and he was a pop culture phenomenon for a very short time. Just like this game, Tecmo World Wrestling, just for a very short time before we get into '91 and the Super Nintendo, and that kind of takes over the world here. But overall, Tecmo World Wrestling, I think it's a good game. It's a solid game. I definitely recommend it if you want a good wrestling game on the NES. I think there's only maybe 2.5 if you want to count WCW. We'll talk about that at another time. But the original Pro Wrestling is a good wrestling game. The Tecmo World Wrestling is a good wrestling game for the NES. So if you want to get your pro wrestling fill on the NES, those are the 2 games I recommend. So we are officially out of time. I will catch you next time on the Retro Wrestling